Okay, so Mark Twain said this: I am an old man and have known a great many troubles, but most of them never happened. Think about the things in your life that you were afraid of, worried about, anxious about. I mean, these feelings are something we all experience. It's kind of a mismatch of our modern environment, but we won't get into that today. This is more about what can you do about this? How can you recognize it? How can you become more self-aware? And how can you just give yourself a freaking break? We worry so much about things that we think are going to happen a certain way. But the reality is, of the statistics of the things that actually happen, usually they don't happen as severe as what we're worried about, right? And a lot of times the things that really get to us are things that we have no idea of. They're unknown, right? They come out of left field. What can you do with this information? Like, let's say you understand this. Let's say you wake up every day and you have that anxious mindset about various things. What do? How do you combat it? I will say it's not going to happen overnight. It's definitely going to be a practice. It's going to be something that you do on a daily basis, right? To catch yourself, to catch those feelings requires self-awareness. It requires recognizing what you're saying in your mind, what you're telling yourself, what you're letting your subconscious kind of go to, okay? You have to bring attention to it, shine a light on it, then go and change your thinking. Maybe positive self-talk, maybe just reminding yourself that most of the time, stuff is just fine. Most of the time, stuff works itself out. In fact, there's another concept here that can help you. It's the idea of regression to the mean. So most of the things in your life, if you have like an average happy life or an average not so hard life or an average, whatever your average is, like sometimes stressful, sometimes not, whatever, those really big things that you're afraid of, well, even if those do happen, the regression to the mean principle says that you will very soon return to what your baseline is. It's why lottery winners tend to be happy, get a spike right after they win the lottery, but then after 3 to 6 months, they're back down to whatever their level of happiness was before. Now, moving that regression of the mean up, that's a topic for another day. What we're trying to do is we're trying to recognize those negative fears. Really a lot of this is fear. It's fear of what may happen, what could happen. And we obsess over the future, right? And this is where you get into stuff like Buddhism, which Buddha, Siddhartha, I believe Siddhartha was his name, he figured out that, because he was trying to find the answer to suffering, okay? And so he became an ascetic. He lived without any possessions for years, but then he realized that even in that he would have to struggle because he could go hungry, he would be dirty, etc. And so it wasn't until he started meditating under I think it was a famous tree or something, it might have been a cave, that he reached enlightenment by kind of making his mind as, blank, right? And then by getting to that blank state, they call it nirvana, where you basically aren't attached to anything, think about anything. You're not in the past, you're not in the future. You're literally only in the now in your mind in just a blank, clear state. That was how he figured out the answer to suffering for him, right? And so a lot of people, a lot of meditation practices about this, a lot of, Buddhist philosophy is about trying to get to that state where you're only supremely in the now, because when you're in the now and you're focused on what's in front of you, you're not worrying about what could happen in the future, and you're not obsessing over the past. This idea is life-changing stuff, right? But like anything, like fasting, like going to the gym, this is a habit. You don't wake up every day, even if you are meditating like 8 hours a day, you're still going to get sucked into the past and the future. It's just like part of being human. It's just the hardest thing we have to do. And this is why we get frustrated. This is why we get angry. This is why we get sad. It's always some issue with the past or the future. Okay? Very rarely in the actual moment are we like suffering through pain, or like someone's cutting our arm off, or someone's tied us up and we're captured. Most of the time, we don't have issues with the now. Most of the time, we have issues with the thing that just happened. We're pissed off about somebody cutting us off, or somebody saying something, or we're obsessed about how we're going to do on the test, or if this person's going to say yes or no, or if you're going to get that application, get into that college, whatever it is, right? Getting to the now is definitely the number one way to solve this issue. But I don't want that to be the only technique you use, because then you have to go into like meditations and mindfulness and all these things. Like that's kind of a big thing, and everybody should do it. And you should have these habits as part of your life. These are definitely habits I recommend. But I also think you need to use things like logic and even stoicism and some of these ideas of how to actually use your mind and how to decide how to think about things, right? Because that's what most people don't understand. And if there was a point to this video, aside from the Buddhist stuff and being in the now, it would be control how you think about things. Decide how you're going to think about things. right? Most people, what they do is they simply respond. They respond emotionally. They don't let logic dictate. That's why a lot of times when people are emotional and they're stubborn and frustrated, they're very irrational. Like, and later on, they might even be like, I was so dumb. I was so dumb. Why did I do that? Why did I act like that? Or that was stupid, or whatever, right? Road rage, getting in fights. People sometimes accidentally kill people. All the things that you do when you're not in a rational frame of mind. This is the thing that I want you to be most self-aware of. This is the thing that requires you just constantly ask yourself, am I being rational here? Am I being logical? Is the best answer to this problem I'm facing to be more emotional? Or is it to simply accept it, or maybe distract myself, or do something else, or just move on? And a lot of times what you'll find is acceptance and then just letting it go from your mind, just detaching from it. Because what we do is we obsess, and the more we get emotional and the more we obsess over it, the more we feel like we're rigid in our attachment to it, right? And that's why you have things like Buddhism and being in the now and mindfulness, because it's trying to detach that, it's trying to break that chain. Anger and emotion is a rigid attachment to things that we want to be a certain way. It's kind of like our unwillingness to accept the reality of the situation, right? Or come to terms with it. It's us wanting to be different. And as you may or may not know, you can't change the past and you can't change the future. I mean, to some extent, you can control the future, but you can't control how people are going to respond to you. You can't control how the environment's going to respond to you. You can't control all the random things that may or may not happen. So coming to terms with the fact that the past is done, there's nothing you can do about that whatsoever other than change how you think about it now. And the future is going to come, and all you can do is focus on what you can do to control the future so that it is as close to what you want as possible. But even then, you aren't going to control what actually happens. And what actually happens, you have to accept and then use to your advantage the best you can. And that's going to be it for today's video. Think about this, watch it multiple times. These ideas can literally change your life. I know it's one video, it's short, but this stuff, it's huge. It is huge. Do something about it. Become aware. Question your beliefs. Question your feelings. Question how you're responding to things. And then hopefully use that to make better decisions and not suffer. Because life is short. Don't waste your time suffering or being anxious or whatever. The past, come to terms with it. The future, come to terms with it. And then take action to move you to where you want to be. And if you don't get there exactly how you want, accept it and then pivot and do something else, right? Like and subscribe.